So here's what we're covering today. Why we do this work. We'll go to the assignments, start with 4. We're going to just hit on the touch points, of course, hit to assignment 5. And the break will be, you know what, I don't always know exactly what, in a new content, you never know exactly how long things will run. Hi, Imelda. So the break will happen as it has been the last couple of weeks. After the break or shortly thereafter, depending on how the timing goes with things, we're going to look at the map of my story. And this is a tool I'm going to encourage people to use as you progress forward in your process of calling in your next soul partner. And I know some of you have different, it's not a one size fits all. Some of you have different reasons, different reasons why you don't have a partner on, but the point is to get to the bottom of that, to move the impediments that are, am I recording? Let me make sure. Thank you, whoever said that, Anel. Yes, I'm recording. Thank you. To get to the impediments that are in the way. And some of that is similar processes, but I'm really touching on all the elements that might cause that. Hi, Janice and Cher. Yeah, and then we're going to end with a reclaiming self meditation. Really a beautiful process. And there's not going to be any homework next week. And the reason for that is because this week is potent. And I've heard from some of you about your process over the week. And, when you start doing a deep dive into yourself, especially if you haven't been doing it, a lot of stuff can come up. And it's intense. It's not easy. The work of showing up for yourself is not easy. But easy doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, and often reflects a value to our overall expansion that we tend to not consider when we're resisting our own emotional content or expanding our awareness in some way. And hi, Cheryl and Bobia, and I think I've said hello to everyone there. If I hadn't, hello. So let's move into it here. The first graphic, why, I can't do it. How? Why do we do this work? Why do we jump into this? And I know some of you probably have a point of view, and you're probably right. But I think it's worthwhile to talk about it and validate the process. Because it is a process and it's repeatable and it works every time, every single time. And so no matter where we are in our process, when we engage in self-connectedness and self-awareness and healing of some measure, we're going to feel that move energy in other parts of our life, and we're going to get results, plain and simple. Are they the results we want? Well, you'll figure that out. It's a relational experience to life that we're trying to fine tune. So some of the questions that come up when we're doing this challenging work of looking at our wounding and our life is, why shouldn't it just be organic? When I was 20, I just met somebody. We just got together. It just happened. Well, first of all, we're at a different time of life. The energy we bring to a situation is different. Ignorance is bliss. We're usually, our will is so potent in younger times of life, and we're driven primarily, in my point of view, by karma, programming, and what culture is telling us we should be doing. And depending on the time of life, we're all in the same collective consciousness. I'm supposed to get into a relationship between 18 and 23. I'm supposed to get married and have 2.4 children. So we share an ideology that is for that time of life. And so we magnetize towards those type of people. And then we get into a situation and that pattern begins in our life. But as we grow and change and life reveals itself and starts to happen, and we encounter outcomes we didn't anticipate, we have to unravel, and we have to deconstruct is the word I use often. How did I get here? You know, my vision was this, but it ended up being this. How do I reconcile that? And hence the work begins. So what benefit is there to dredging up all this schmutz? Schmutz is the word I like to use, and my good buddy Donna, we often talk about schmutz, but it's not schmutz. I mean, it is schmutz and it's not schmutz. It's our life. It's our process. It's part of us, and we want to own it and embrace it. But it teaches us so much. You know, when we've had a difficult experience, no matter what it is, something that is written on the slate of who we are, and especially if it's been uncomfortable or undesirable and on the happiness scale, you know, we're like, I don't want to touch that. I'd like to forget about that. That was hard. That was painful, whatever. But the more we can embrace the schmutz, the more we can lean into it and see the value, then we embrace ourselves. We feel the abundance of the life experience. We don't categorize things as good or bad or right or wrong, but rather divine food. And when we can evolve ourselves to a point where we see all of our experience as divine food, we're in the flow, baby. We're in it. We've dialed it in. And then we just have to engage in the process of staying with that. And when we're in the divine flow, what happens? It's easy to set intention and have something happen. I mean, that's the ticket. You want to have a clear path to set intention and attract to you. But as long as we're still judging, as long as we're still being victimy, as long as we're still thinking, I can't do it, I'm not able, then we've disempowered ourselves and our magnetism lowers. We can't attract. And then the next thing is like, you get into this stuff, and I've been there. I promise you, I have been there. I'm not there now, not to say I won't be there again at some other point in my life. But you get to a point sometimes like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm tired. I don't know. This is a lot. You're asking a lot. I look at this stuff and I feel like it's going to take me over. I feel like if I go into it, it's going to absorb me. And once again, I am out of control in my life. I don't have the power. And yeah, I don't know. But you know, you don't have to know. You have to trust. And this is the importance of connecting to a greater reality. And this is sort of the importance of community, is so that you can have a process reflected back to you by other people who are in different places than you are. Because some of you are probably way ahead of me in this conversation. You're like, oh yeah, I'm all the way there. I'm on board. This is great validation. I know. But some of you may be exactly where I'm talking about, saying, I don't know. Is this really worthwhile to do this kind of digging? So the ability to trust, and to trust the intelligence that gave you life, is so important. You know, I have to say, it's always curious to me when people talk about being either agnostic or atheist. It's such a separating idea, and I usually feel really compassionate toward those people. And you don't have to have a point of view about what that intelligent reality is. And I often refer to it as energy, because most people don't have a trigger around energy. They can say, yeah, everything's energy. Einstein talked about that. Yeah, all right, quantum physics, yada, yada, yada. And if you relate to energy on a high vibration, that's why I like to use that tool that we had a couple of weeks ago. But without that ability to have a frame and to even consider the phrase that everything is divine food of life, you know, it's a lot harder. It's not that it can't be done, but it certainly is a lot harder if you can't get to that point. I don't know if anybody on this in this particular room has that challenge, but I'd be curious to hear, and it's not a criticism if you're not able to get there, if you're agnostic or it's not a criticism. It's really like, where are you? And how's it working for you? And if it's working, I'm not going to argue with you. And I would never argue with you anyhow, but I will promise you, I'm going to advocate on behalf of what I believe is a more expansive point of view for you to sit inside of. And then the other question that comes up, am I ever going to connect to a soul partner already? Well, why? Will it ever happen? It's been 2 years, 5 years, 20 years. Is it ever going to happen? It will happen when you say yes to it, quite frankly. Because what I know for sure is there is an abundance of love out there in the world, an abundance of available partners who are worthwhile, who can be a good match for you and can meet your needs. We are missing them through our filters. And that is probably the most important piece about why we do this. We think it's like, oh, there aren't enough out there, or there's only one, or if I miss this one, then I can't get another one. But it's not true. I think it's more like turning on a faucet. You turn the faucet on and let viable partners come into your space, and you choose from those viable partners that show up based upon what you're magnetizing into consciousness. And if you are a clear receiver, it becomes joyful and fun. But you will absolutely connect to a soul partner. And a soul partner, to me, as we talked about in other lessons, is someone who comes to you based upon where you are resonating at the present moment, at this particular time in your experience. I get a lot of people talking to me about soulmates and twin flames and things like this, buzzword phrases. Not to condemn those people who use those phrases. I would never do that. I have a different jargon about it. I look at things in terms of mate agreements and possibilities. And when I look at people, I always see multiple opportunities. They may not see them, but I can see them. And different partners are going to stimulate different parts of us that make them feel like, oh, this is the only one for me. I could never be with anyone else because that person matched so fantastically. Well, they matched with one piece of who you are. And we forget we're these incredible, multidimensional, amazing spiritual beings that sort of squeeze ourselves into a human body and identify with the personality and say, this is who I am. But when we open up to the totality of our essence, of our spirit, of what is possible for us, then someone else can come in and they touch us on a different level than what person A or B touched us on. And you're like, dang, I thought that person was fantastic, but this person is actually, I think it's meeting my needs even better than I thought. So this idea that we've already met them, or that we can't have something that feels even better than what we had before, is really a falsehood. So if that's any part of your experience, I want you to let that go. And I think when we've had a connection and attachment, it's normal. We're human. You're guilty of being human, nothing more. When we've had an attachment and it goes away for whatever reason, breakup, death, divorce, doesn't matter. It's hard to get back into balance. It's not easy, but the journey back to balance is something we want to embrace, not judge it or conclude that something is wrong in our process because we have grief or we have that type of loss present in our system. However, as I said earlier, when you lean into it and you allow yourself to truly heal and embrace that disattachment and put the relationship in a context of abundance, not lack or loss, you'll be freer to move on. And you will absolutely magnetize someone new into your experience that is fabulous. Will they be perfect? There isn't any such thing. But it's, kind of like from Good Will Hunting. What did Robin Williams say to Matt Damon? It's not whether or not your partner is perfect, but are they perfect for you, for where you are now? And so lastly, why is the present moment so important? And this is what I know for sure. I don't know a lot of things for sure, but this I know for sure. And it has to do also with being a psychic, being born psychic, and having to unravel why stuff is happening to me that is like cuckoo. It's like, what? When you're in the present moment, you are clear, you're an observer, you're not reactive, and you can honor what is happening to you rather than judge it. And you see it for a relational experience as opposed to an outcome or a conclusion. And you can use the present moment as a barometer for the status of your energy. And when you get skilled at that, being able to be in the present moment, it makes navigating relationships so much easier, because then it really becomes joyful. It's not about, does he love me? Does she love me? Does she accept me? Does he not accept me? Is this the right one? Is this not the right one? It's about what's happening to me while this experience is happening. How am I reacting? What's my response pattern to this? And as we lean into that, that's the only mechanism we need to track. Not that we don't have to assess a partner and say, okay, do I want that habit and that quality, and use levels of discernment to determine if that's an appropriate partner. But it's more about our reaction to it. And are we honoring ourselves? So all these reasons, when we do the deep dive into our own schmutz, we're able to get clearer on, can I be present? Do I have a relationship to divine consciousness, to a greater reality, to an intelligent reality? And do I believe that reality is acting in my favor? Because that's where I live. I think there's a conspiracy out there for life to work for you. I do. My life has proved that to be true. I don't know if yours has, or you're there, you can tell me. But my life has proved that that's true to me. And when I lean into that, everything just gets easier. If this work has been tough for you, it's okay. You'll get through it. And I know from doing tough work myself, and having long periods of my life where it's been hard, and when will this ever end? This depression, this heaviness, this lack of desire, when will it end? It always changes. It always changes into something else. And that's why the ability to trust and connect to create a reality just makes such good sense. Okay. Any questions about that? Any comments you want to make on that before we do the deep dive that you guys took last week? I hear somebody unmuted.
Okay. I'm hesitating, Phyllis, because I don't know if this is a good question or not. It's Janice Foster.
It's a terrible question, and don't you dare ask it. Who's talking?
Okay. This is Janice.
Oh, hi, Janet. Okay, go for it.
Well, what you were saying, I struggle with this. Okay. After you've been through some bumps and bruises with previous relationships, I find for me, I'm more, shall we say, evaluative. I try not to say judgment, but you're really trying to size that person up so you don't find yourself in a similar predicament to where you were previously that brought you so much discomfort and frustration, et cetera, et cetera. And you just don't want to go down that path again. So that's an overarching issue for me. So if we could address that.
Of course, and you're human.
In the course of the class today, I'd appreciate that.
No, I'm addressing it right now, sister. You're human. You're allowed to be human. But what you're telling me is I'm going into the world protecting myself.
Yep.
So you're going to want to look at that, because we cannot get to love protecting ourselves. We have to be vulnerable. It doesn't mean you shouldn't honor your experience and say, you know what, I've been wounded and I know that it's difficult for me to trust. I'm slow to do it. But rather than protect, when you move into something, you want to be able to share with future and potential partners that you scare easy. You know, it's difficult for you to open up as rapidly as you once did, but you can do it. But you require some patience from your partner. That's a communication issue. And that's something that talks about the type of partner you're likely going to need, which we'll get into next week when we start grounding the space for the next partner. But as you start interviewing potentials, you test the water to see if they can be patient with you. But you want to own it as yours and take responsibility for protecting yourself in an open way, you know, taking care of yourself in an open way, not closing off. And if that means you have to go slowly, that's what it means. But I would continue to work the healing levels around that, and also to have the awareness of when you get scared. Is it like the first phone call you have with a person? Oh my God, he called. I didn't know he was going to call this quick. Oh my God, I'm in a relationship. Oh my God. Or is it like after the first date? When do you get scared? You want to be able to track your process so you know when you're there, and you can say, you know what, I really enjoyed hanging out with you. I really enjoyed talking to you. I'm already feeling a little uneasy. And then be able to tell that person what you need, or ask for what you need, and then give it to yourself. I think too often we've been in a pattern of accommodating others, women more than men, but men do it too, and think, oh my God, if I don't give this person what they want, and if I don't encourage them, they're going to leave me. Okay, well, let them leave you. You want to go on to the next. You want to be who you are, say what your truth is, and communicate on behalf of yourself. And in that, you're going to be empowered. You're going to feel stronger. You're going to feel like, oh, I've got this. I can take care of myself. I can speak my truth. I can say what I need, not in a like demanding, or you better do this or else. No, it's more like, this is who I am. This is what my life has brought me to. I want a relationship, but I'm a little scared, or a lot scared. But if we can be patient with one another, I can get there. I know I can do it. Does that make sense?
It does. Yes. Thank you. There are a couple other wrinkles with that, but I'll discuss that with you offline. But thank you.
No, what's the wrinkles?
Well, no, it's just that when you see somebody doing something that just really, it's like, why are you eating cake for breakfast? That is so stupid. I mean, why?
My kids would disagree with you. My kids would say,
why don't you go have your eyes examined? You haven't had your eyes examined in 4 years. You know, you're over 60.
But wait a second. You know what you're doing? You're projecting. And so it's not about what the other person is doing
or not doing.
It's about our reaction to it. And that's what we want to keep paying attention to. Why do I give a crap if somebody eats cake for breakfast? You know, maybe I want to be with someone who's more health conscious. You know, you're allowed to be with someone who's more health conscious if you want. But you don't want to judge someone for what their choice is. That's not going to work. If you don't want that in your life, don't have that in your life, but don't judge. If someone is not going to take proper care of their body and have proper, healthcare appointments, that's I don't want to be with someone who wants to be a couch potato. It doesn't mean I'm going to judge them, but I want to get up and go. I don't want to sit down and watch TV all day. So
Right.
I want a partner who's active, who wants to go do things. It doesn't mean I couldn't care about a person who's a couch potato. It means that lifestyle will not work for me. So you're
Okay.
allowed to have preferences, but don't accept someone into your space that you're going to judge. And then look at that judgment. Why? That's another protection. I think that if I judge, I'm going to be safe. I mean, it's all part of the same package. And you want to keep turning it back on yourself. Why am I judging? I'm a divine being. I'm a loving person. Is judging loving? No. And if we want to magnetize love to us, we have to be loving ourselves. And don't let anything get in the way of that. Have your discernment, have your preferences, but don't go down that road and recognize that it's all about protection.
Thanks, Phyllis.
Cheryl says, I agree. Melody says, I love eating. Okay. It's the perfect sweetness with coffee. Yeah. Okay. Anything else before we move on? Okay. Well, you can pop in there whenever you need, guys. Okay. So here we go. For those of you who did some of this work last week, the first assignment was really around understanding your greatest injury or pattern of injuries that have occurred in your life. Who inflicted the injuries? What did you tell yourself about them? Are you able now to see how those injuries have motivated your choice in past partnership, and how free do you feel from the weight of past injuries? So, not to pick on you, Janice, but you were great enough to volunteer for scrutiny. Clearly, someone like you look at, and I'm sure there's a lot more backstory to Janice's story, but clearly she has been open. Stuff happened, and now she's still covering up some. So, I'm just using you as the model. I'm not saying this is 100% accurate, but it doesn't seem you're free from the weight of your past injuries, or you're going to need to make a decision how you're going to relate to your injuries as you move forward, so that you can be in the driver's seat of interaction with folks.
That's true. Yeah, I'm not free.
Well, but you can be. And I think that's part of the last slide. I think when you say, can I do it? Can I get free of this stuff? Yeah, you absolutely can. But it has to be a choice, and it has to be intentional. And you have to engage with yourself and say, I've got this. I can do this. It's not necessarily easy, but I can do it. And it's worthwhile to do it. You only have to move the needle a little bit, and you'll get a large return on that investment. And if we know who did it to us, then we have something to work with on the forgiveness level. We can say, excuse my language, that asshole really did me wrong. I was open and free and giving, and they sliced me off at the knees and stabbed me in the back and, poured, lighter fluid on top of it. And that's okay. But we want to work on forgiveness and then restoring the humanity to that individual. Not that we have to forget, but we want to always look for the value of the experience. And that may always be a scar, but that's okay. I mean, it's still part of our experience, the beauty of our life. And we want to acknowledge that even the ugliness has an important role in who we are, and we want to embrace that. Let's see, Susie, dad, ex-husband, ex-boyfriend, and other men in the past. tiptoed on emotional abuse. It told me that it was normal, and I internalized it, that I accept it because I'm strong enough to withstand it, and they are hurt, and yet I'm not loving myself to walk away. Yep. Well, most of us, I mean, our families give us a lifetime of stuff to unravel. That's why we choose our family. I mean, I come from you don't have to ascribe to that. I come from a point of view that we choose the family that we want to incarnate into. Go with it. I mean, try it on. You don't have to live there, but that's my point of view. Because we are spiritual beings at our core. We're here to evolve ourselves, to heal, and to contribute to the consciousness at large. And it's not just about coming into the life and going to school and getting married and having babies. That's what we do as human beings, but we're part of a consciousness that is, if it's not expanding, it's contracting. And we're part of that. So Susie, I love that you have the awareness that your slate has been written on. And as you continue your healing journey on that particular issue of accommodation and normalizing abuse, because we all do it. Children want to make their parents right. I don't care if the parent held a gun to their kid's head and said whatever they said, the kid's going to want to turn that around and say, oh, well, there was a reason. Because if there's a reason, then it can be made better. And my parent, my whoever is going to love me like I want them to love me. And so we're going to turn ourselves inside out to make that superior person, that person who had power over us, a good guy. And that'll make the pain go away. But if we can wrap our arms around the pain and find a way to integrate it into our system, which there are many ways to do, and then look at a greater reason for what that divine food offers us, we're going to feel better. And we're going to see that, yeah, they are wounded, they are hurt, and we restore the humanity to their experience while we empower ourselves to rise into the fullness of what our capability is, which does not include being injured. It includes being healed. And it is an act of self-love. I love that statement. I'm not loving myself to walk away. And when I talked about attachments earlier, it's not easy. It is not easy. It's hard work to be in pain and know you love somebody, but know you have to walk away because we crave that connection. We crave that attachment. And especially if we've had a lifetime of grasping for it, that our caregivers and people in our experience didn't give it to us. We're like, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. We'll accept any reasonable facsimile of it and substitute it for the real thing because we'll be happy for crumbs. But the more we lean into ourselves and the more we honor ourselves, not only does our vibration raise, but we're going to attract more than crumbs. And with every level of healing, we can attract a partner who can give us more. And so it's not a straight line. And you don't want to look at this as an all or nothing proposition. It's a process. And it's expand and it's contract, and it's expand and it's contract. That's how life is. We're expanding. Oh, this is great, 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 great. That's, oh my gosh, that's too much. It's trial and error. But if you keep your eye on the North Star, over time, you will elevate yourself. You will heal more. You will see in your outcomes that you're progressing and who you attract. Or the partner that you do have will match your process and do better. There's no lose here. So I just encourage you not to judge yourself. Allow yourself to stumble if that's how you view it, and allow yourself to dust yourself off. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep your eye on the North Star. Wendy, me, myself, and I are guilty. I do too much except for myself. See, this is what's amazing about being present. We have our answers. You know, one of the major ways you're impeding your own high vibration experience. I do too much except for myself. And you're not alone. Most women I know and many men I know, lots of men actually, because they think they're supposed to make it better for everybody. You should be number one on the wit list. You have to be number one on the list. That's your spiritual obligation to the creator that gave you life to make sure you're okay. You can't be present for anybody else if you are not okay, because what you're bringing to the party is scarcity. You're bringing limitation. If I don't, I'm not enough. I have to do more than. I have to give myself up to something else or somebody. So you don't, if you're bringing forward scarcity, limitation, that's what you're passing on to the person that you're compensating for. But when you begin to put yourself first, make sure your needs are met, it gets way easier. It gets better. Your experiences become better. It's not selfish. It's a spiritual practice to put yourself first in a way that is present, authentic, and loving, not judging, not fearful. So give yourself permission to do that. Try it. Try it. Do an experiment. Try it for a month. I mean, it takes about 30 days to change the thought pattern. Try it for a month. Put it into action. I am going to make sure I get what I need every day for the next month, and see what that does to your world. How it starts to change, how you start to feel. And I know with people in my life, especially men, because they will bang down your door and try and get you to do what they want. Do it. Not, Barry, I'm not insinuating that, I'm generalizing, so I don't want to exclude you from this conversation. But they will pull on you and pull on you because they have their issues too. Not all of them. But, you know, if we don't stand up for ourselves and advocate for ourselves, you know, I think it's kind of human nature. You know, we're like children. You know, I will say I am biased, but my kids are amazing, okay? But they will squeeze every bit of life out of me if I let them. We come into the life programmed to be selfish. It's preservation, to live. If we're programmed to be selfish. Me, mine. And so you got to watch out for that with people. It doesn't mean we're bad people. It means we're still kind of conditioned, and all of us have our injuries and we want to be filled up. Then if we find a soft place to land, like, give it to me. So we have to have good boundaries, and we have to be familiar with how to put ourselves first. And I tell you, the men that bang down my door, the first thing I say, you know what? I'm busy. And I like to work out every day. I like to practice my guitar. I spend time with my kids. When all that's done, I'll make time for you. That's my world. Take it or leave it. And that's fine with me. And if they can't be on board with that, okay, you can't be on board with that. I'm not changing. I like my life the way it is. It works for me. I'm happy. And you're going to fit into my world. And if you don't, that's okay. You go do you. All right, Anel. Feeling hurt based on family and previous relationships, I wall my heart off to opening again to pain. Yep. Well, I mean, you and Jackie or you and Janice are in the same boat in certain ways. Same dynamic, that you may need a combination of additional healing practices, and make sure you've done the 360 on all the hurts. I wrote a book, it was really my second book, but it's called The Heart of the Matter, A Journey to Wholeness. The hardest frickin' book I ever wrote in my life. It took me several years. I worked with a couple different editors, in part because I retold much of my story, but I did so in the context of how it served me. And so through that process, and I think it was a 2.5 to 3 year process, and I cried through most of it. I'd sit at my computer, blah, 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 just crying and writing and crying and writing. But I did it. I wanted to make sure I was seeing the abundance, what I learned, who I became, so that that was the frame of reference I have when I reflect upon the past. I mean, I've had my fair share, I promise you, of unpleasantness in my life. But writing that book, and maybe that's what you need to do, or any of you who are relating to this, when you go through the process of telling your life story or doing a timeline, you can even do a timeline. It doesn't have to be a book. Year after year, what happened this year? What happened in that year? What happened? And then you do the work to say, this is what happened. This belonged to that person. This was mine. Who I became because of it. How I feel about it now. What do I need to do to really rid myself of any residue that's pulling on me? And do it until you get to that point where you can feel, you know, that was an abundant experience. Didn't look like what my mind tells me abundance is, but I have really grown. I have really shifted. And my viewpoint about life itself has become bigger, has become greater because of that experience. And I encourage you to lean into that. It's worth it, because these hurt feelings that we hold, those are impediments. People can't get through that. We can't be vulnerable. They can't see us. They hit up against our energy and they feel the rejection. They feel the closed offness. They feel the inaccessibility to you. It's not what you look like. It's not, are you too old, too fat, too thin? It's like, can you show up for me? Most people, generally speaking, are just looking for that validation, someone to see them and say, can you hold me? Are you going to be able to hold me? Will you accept me? And if you aren't accepting of your own experience, people sense that. And they're like, oh no, she's not available. She's going to kick me to the, she's not going to show up for me. So we have to show up for ourselves, to be able to resonate an openness and a vulnerability that puts others at ease. And it's not our job to put others at ease, but when we feel accessible, people are going to flock to us. So if you like writing, great. If you don't like writing, at least do a timeline, or at least on the major points in your life when you know you've been pummeled, and bring those things up to present time and resolve them, or get them to a higher level, so where you don't feel the weight of them, that you reflect upon them and you're like, yeah, don't want to do that again. But it's not a drag on your energy. Bhavya, I don't know how to open, as the trauma happened with a borderline mom when I was an infant. I don't trust life and I don't know what love is. Oh, sweetheart. Ah, I know. We get kicked around. It is a lot. You know, I don't know if you're interested in this, but the therapy lifespan integration is amazing for that. I'm sure there's other modalities out there that I'm unfamiliar with, but I'm familiar with lifespan integration. And it does take you back to in the womb, to the birth, to all of that trauma, and allows you to wrap your arms around yourself. But the way lifespan integration works, it's a repetitive process that works with the neurology of your brain. And so it isn't like you're rewriting history, but your brain gets to redo how you feel about it and how you approach it. And it absolutely takes the charge off of your body's response on a cellular level. So whether you do lifespan or something like that, and I've done lifespan, and it's one of the fastest ways for trauma repair. So a lot of trauma, and you could be in trauma recovery and therapy for 20 years and feel like you barely made a dent. But lifespan, because it works directly with the neurology of the brain through this particular process, you can get a lot done in 6 months. I mean, even 3 months or a year, you can make extraordinary progress. So I hope that you will lean into some modality. And I know you're a vortex person too. And I know a fair amount about vortex healing. And that's another way you could go at it. But given that there's a physical component, I am wondering if you need a physical, emotional modality as well as the energetic, multidimensional, energetic healing piece. So, I'll leave that up to your discretion, but I know it's possible for you because you're amazing. I know you a little bit, and you're amazing. You're fantastic. You're completely lovable and wonderful, and a very cool healer. And you're talented. You're the whole package. So you deserve it. You deserve to give that to yourself, even though it wasn't given to you and you were told the opposite. So, I mean, and this is one of the hard parts about trauma, is when it wasn't modeled to us how to behave or how we can be treated. We have to learn how to give it to ourselves. And we're going to do in the final meditation today, it's not a cure-all, but it is a really lovely process to help us integrate some parts of us. But I encourage you to allow that support in. You deserve it. I mean, you absolutely deserve it. Joanne. Pattern of injuries, feeling of being unheard and not important and weak. Yep. I know you sent this to me direct message. And by the way, if you send me a direct message and you really don't want me to talk about it live, say, please don't talk about it. But I'm going to speak to that particular, not just to you, Joanne, but not important and weak. I know you well because we were in the Life Transitions group for a couple of years together. So I know you very well. And you're one of the sweetest people I've ever known in my life. You are so loving and accommodating and gentle, and it's your nature. And I think you were trained that way. And so when we've been trained, and it's not a negative necessarily, I think you came into the life on a very sweet vibration. Some of us are just sweetie pies. This is our nature, to be loving and giving. But then when we have training on top of that, programming that tells us this is how we need to show up in the world, or we're not a good person, that we're not allowed to push back, that's not ladylike, that's rude or whatever, and we sort of metabolize that and digest it in certain ways, we do give ourselves a bill of goods about how we need to show up. And as women especially, and even in midlife, we got to get rid of that stuff. We've got to break the social norm pattern, and we have to sever that influence and give ourselves permission to just be women and human beings, to get our inner navigation clear. We need to be able to have our sensing system in place. And if we're identifying with cultural norms, family norms, religious norms, if we are identifying with those external structures, we're going to drown out our own navigation. So for someone like you, or people who are so super sweet and accommodating and generous and nice and all the things that you are that are lovely, I would encourage you to go to the other end of the spectrum and be a full-on bitch. Because if you aim for bitch every day, you're going to land in the middle. You could never be a bitch, I don't think. I would like to see you try. But if you aim for it, you're going to land more in the middle. And I think once you start feeling your power and what it's like to be an empowered woman, and what we're supposed to be empowered women, the planet needs us, for God's sakes. We need the feminine dynamic to guide and nurture at a higher level. We have a different awareness than men, not better, not worse, but it's a different one that needs to be heard. And we have to be able to give to ourselves in that way and have the boundaries and feel that power and project that. And your ability to do that is also what's going to be able to call in a partner who will not push you around, who will not stretch your boundaries beyond what is reasonable, but rather support you in being that person who does have boundaries, who does say, this is what I like, this is what I need, please do that. And they're like, yes, of course, you're a goddess. You're this, you're that. Of course, I'm going to do that for you.
Thank you, Phyllis. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
I know you are. I know you are. And Wendy, I'm doing that right now. I'm working on that. Good. Good for you, Wendy. I know you would. Cousin's friend told myself I lost my innocence. It affected my relationships for 1.5 decades because my guards/walls were up. Hi, I'm mostly free from it, but it pops up from time to time. Well, and so you're aware of it though. And I love how you said it's mostly beyond you. And just because we have the awareness, Sonia, by the way, doesn't mean it'll never come up, especially those major events that really wrote on the slate of who we are. They're there. And when we come into a new situation where we are vulnerable and we open up, they're probably going to show up. But if we're in tune with ourselves and we see it creeping in, then we can factor it into how we navigate. And we either tell our partner about it, or we work to keep our walls down, whatever it takes. But I think you're in a good position because you have the awareness, and it still can influence you at times, and that's okay. We don't have to be perfect with this, but having the awareness and then getting practice with how to manage our reactivity when it shows up is really the name of the game. So I'm going to do Sherry's question next, but let's take our break right now, head to the bathroom and all that stuff. And yeah, okay. All right, guys. I hope everyone got to empty their bladder and all that good stuff. I'm going to jump right back into it because we got a little ways to go. And that's what I mean about sometimes it's hard to know how long some of this stuff will take. So here we go. We're going to jump right back in with Sherry. And this is so in alignment with the work I'm doing in a grief recovery class. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Jackie says, where would you get lifespan integration? Well, it was founded from some people up in Seattle. I can't remember their name. I have a personal friend named Donna Morris. She's a therapist who does the work. She's been certified in it. You're certainly welcome to look her up, donnamorrish.com. She can do it via Zoom. I mean, everything is kind of via Zoom these days. But it originated out of Seattle. So if you Google Seattle, you can get the people who actually created yeah. So let's see, Melody, Joanne, love you. Sally, I'm going to aim for bitch for 30 days. That suggestion speaks to me. All right, okay, good. Susie, I want the one that calls me a goddess. Yeah. Well, I tend to think most men view us that way when they're into us, or like, oh my God, how did I get so lucky? This is amazing. So, yeah. Imelda, Joanne, I feel you. Phyllis advised I do the same. I can do the 30-day bitch challenge with you. Sally recommends. You never know what people are going to like, Funny. Thanks, Imelda. Thank you. Okay. Oh, okay. So we're not as far behind as I thought. I saw all these different messages. Okay. So let's move on to the next. those of you who did this with the touch points for the journal possibility, how much does guilt and obligation play a role in how you form relationships? Are you able to release expectations? Are you able to identify neediness that's born from your wounding? How do you feel about developing the courage to show your true self and risk disappointment? I think we've heard some of that today. And how close are you to be able to honor self above accommodation to others? Because that's the navigation point most of us need to adhere to. And what about embracing your interests and developing yourself? You know, I think we touched on that last week when we're like, well, what are you doing for yourself to expand into yourself? Are you touching parts of yourself that make you you? And I'm very curious also for those of you who haven't moved forward to cultivate new relationships and you don't know why, or it just feels elusive. I'm curious about that. So give me some feedback on that, those of you who did that challenge, or whatever inspires you at this particular moment.
Do you want us to talk or do you want us to type?
Either one, whatever you like.
Well, what I discovered in this, and it was one of those slap your forehead moments, you know.
Okay.
How come it took me 60 years to figure this out? What I discovered was that I had an extraordinarily abusive childhood, and I realized that I had two choices. I could die or I could survive, and I picked survive. And the result was that I'm a really strong person. And so I tend to attract people who need somebody strong to lean on, which is just fine when I'm in a good way. But when I need to lean, there's nobody there.
Oh.
So I realized that the reason I was doing that was that I equated needing me with loving me. Turns out that's not the truth. So as far as being ready to move on and free of the, oh yeah, I'm there.
You are there?
I am there.
And so thank you for sharing all that, by the way. So in terms of being the leader and being the one who's always there for others, are you able to let others be there for you?
I am. Oddly enough, I live in 2 hours from Everything, Arkansas, and I'm the entire staff of One Heart Retreat Center. So I've gotten a real solid dose of being the leader and not having anyone to lean on, and I have started to find people who actually are interested in helping me, people I can lean on. In fact, the weird background is because this morning was my ordination, and two of those people showed up here to be able to take part in it.
That's lovely.
So yeah, I am.
That's wonderful.
And it's kind of cool.
Yes, I would think so. It's got to feel really refreshing and happy, I would think. That's lovely. And again, congratulations on your celebratory moment. And thank you for your work and service.
And it's her birthday.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday.
Ah!
Can I
Say
add
it's a
something?
birthday. Yeah, it's great. Awesome. Yes, Melody.
Hi, Phyllis. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I wanted to add to what Sherry said earlier, and some of my experiences this week, actually, some relationships or friendships have surfaced, and I think due to kind of your guidance through the class assignments to really dive deep within, and the concept of reassessing the relationships that exist and really letting go of the toxicity or what's not serving us, and to make room for new relationships, right? I really, what your message last week really resonated in, just how are you making space, physical space, heart space, emotional space, mental space. And it was really interesting that a few relationships, what seemed out of the blue, but I don't believe in coincidence or out of the blue or randomness, that it surfaced this week and gave me an opportunity to really choose, is this one I want to mend, or is this one I want to move on from? So I just wanted to share that because what Sherry had commented on, I feel the same way. I'm a giver, I'm a healer, and that fulfills me and gives me purpose, and I love that. But then in return, when I guess when somebody expected me to be there, but I wasn't, because I was working on my self-love journey, or that I was occupied doing stuff, that person didn't receive our then friendship very well, or that there's other situations where anyway, that I don't remember what the other thing was. I just wanted to comment
Well,
on
and
that.
what you're saying is so important, Melody, and and it goes hand in hand with the ability to be vulnerable and show people when we need them, especially when we tend to be strong and take charge and be the leader. People don't see that we have needs, and we're so good at taking care of ourselves and
Right.
patching everything up. So that ability to say, I need, and then have people recognize, oh, she's not perfect. Oh, okay, she's human too. So,
Yeah.
yeah, cool.
Thank you.
Love it. Thank you. Susie, obligation is a very key factor. I feel as though I need to save everyone, yet not myself. So you and Wendy need to hang out some more. You guys can be there for one another. Obligation is not always a negative. I tend to feel that we are obligated to be there for each other on this planet, that we're connected. We couldn't not be connected. And that we do have a responsibility to one another on a certain level to contribute in certain ways. But we have to do it to ourselves first, or else we're not coming whole to the party. And the holes we bring, we spread around to everyone else. I don't want to make it sound like COVID, but it's a good analogy. If you're infected with something and you're going to share it, if you're sharing, it all goes with. So the more you can be present about the quality of what you're giving, and that it's actually free. I'm giving because it feels good to me and it's the right thing to do, and it's the most abundant choice available. It's good. And I think you're continuing to work toward that North Star, Susie, of putting yourself first and saving yourself first. Like the mask on the airplane, put it on yourself first before your child. And you're getting there. And it's not a straight line. I want to make sure with you, Susie, in particular, you're super hard on yourself. There's no room for that. Compassion, not criticism. Compassion is what we want to embrace. You're smart. When you're off point, you're intuitive. You get the feeling. You don't need to criticize. You don't need to judge yourself. You don't need to be hard on yourself. Quite the opposite. You want to be compassionate with your process and your journey. It's hard. None of this is easy. And so we have to employ those self-love techniques to make it, palatable. Okay. Wendy, I am the most giving person, but I suck at receiving. I'm trying to change that. Well, the flip side of giving is it's actually a controlling mechanism. That when we're giving and people are like, oh, thank you, you're so amazing, blah, blah, blah. The flip side of it can be manipulative, and it's a distancing tool. It keeps us in control, and it keeps us from not being vulnerable. And so, you know, I would ask you, what are you protecting from? Why is it easier to give than receive? It's safer. You don't have to show vulnerability. You don't have to risk someone saying, no, I can't give that to you, or I don't want to give that to you. So receiving puts you in a risky position sometimes. That's why in that first lesson, I opened myself to give and receive love. And it has to be a circle. It has to be, you know, a complete circle if you want it, if you want love in your life, if you want that balance. Otherwise, what are you going to attract? You're going to attract someone who's needy. You're going to attract someone who wants you to do all the giving. And you're like, I'm tired. Can't you do it? So I do a little woodshedding on that one, Wendy. Just and be compassionate with yourself, like with Susie. You have some parallel things happening that, you know, let yourself look at that and be kind to yourself about how that's developed. Thanks, Melody. Okay. So I'm wondering if some of you guys did the sacred wounds and identified as you look through this. And I know Melody had sent me an email over the week. I didn't have an opportunity to respond, but the sacred wound is how we want to look at these experiences that have written on the slate of who we are. They are sacred, they are divine, and we want to evolve ourselves to a point where we see them as such. This is a sacred, and you want to see it. This is part of who I am. This is a divine, sacred situation. Yes, it was difficult. Yes, it was hard. Yes, it's caused me to be X, Y, and Z. But it's still sacred. It's still part of my experience, and I honor it. And that's why when we look at this, how has this served me? Who have I become because of my experiences? And did any of you do a release ceremony after doing the deep dive into all this? Did you do something? Did you write it on paper? Who's talking?
Sherry.
Oh, Sherry, hi.
I wrote the names on rocks.
I love
Remember,
that.
I live out in the middle of no place. I wrote the names on rocks, and then I threw the rocks. I said, I love you, I forgive you, I release you, and I threw it as far as I could throw.
I love that. How'd that
And of course,
feel?
there's no way I could ever get it back because I don't even know where it landed.
Well, I don't think you want it back. So that must have felt good because you get the whole physical piece in there and really had a.
Yeah,
an
it's
emphasis on
amazing what that physical release does with, I mean, your body is not separate from your emotions.
True.
So it was very helpful for me.
Awesome. Great. I love that. Anybody else? Great idea, Joanne says. Yes, that was a great idea. Love the rock idea. Anel, who is an amazing artist photographer. Yes, I just collected rocks at the beach yesterday. Did you do something, Anel? I'm just curious. Or, I mean, and some of you may have not gotten far enough where you felt like you could do that, but I am curious if you were able to at least progress your process an inch, you know, and say, okay, I moved the needle a little bit. I think that's what I'm actually hoping occurred for you. So just give me that feedback if you didn't actually do a release ceremony ritual. Do you feel like you moved the needle or expanded your awareness at all? Deja, Phyllis, what is your favorite way to release in a ritual like this? Well, you know, I'm a writer. I like to write. I like to write and write and write and write. Burn things up. I don't burn things up. I have a gas fireplace now, so I don't throw things in the fireplace. But yeah, I pretty much write and tear things up or crumble them up. And yeah, and I like to read my things out loud over and over and over, and just continue to fine tune them until it feels like I've really said what I needed to say and I've really come through a process. That's just my way. I know when I was at a couple of years ago, I did a retreat up in Depot Bay in Oregon, and we ended up doing a bonfire down on the beach, and people threw stuff into the bonfire, which was really fun. Okay. All right. So, and if nothing else, I'm going to press forward here. See, it's not time to take a break, but the break came a few minutes ago. Okay. So now let's get into this. This is a little, love that retreat. Thanks, Sonia. That was really fun. So for me, this is where we're going. I mean, and this is what I use in my life to navigate my relational experience in life. And it begins with knowing the map of my story, which is what we've been doing here in this process. So we start with, I was born. To the best of my recollection, I was, and here are some possible choices. May seem hard to believe to some of you, but at my core, I'm slightly introverted. I know you don't believe it, but I think I've overcome that. But it is kind of in my nature. I like alone time. I've always been extremely loving. I've always been extremely, I don't know, I'm kind. I was kind of born that way. I'm a Pisces. What can I say? That was my baseline. And the environment I grew up in, my parents' family were, and here's some options. My family was extremely cold. There was a shit ton of abuse, very withdrawn. It was a hard place to be, not fun. So what I told myself or learned was appropriate to expect, and how that early treatment set me up to behave in life. Well, what I told myself was that it was my fault, and it set me up to be accommodating. It set me up to doubt myself. It set me up to be confused about how to navigate life. Then, as I progressed in life and had relationships and different things come along, I began to notice how each situation moved me toward healing. This is in retrospect. Didn't happen necessarily in the moment. But as I began to reflect, as I started bumping up against walls and injuries outside of my family of origin, I'm like, oh, this situation is teaching me this. Oh, this situation is showing me that. And I began to string together, oh, these are learning experiences. And that was super helpful. And then as I continued to progress, I realized, oh, it's my responses I need to pay attention to if I want to carve a different path. It's not just who I pick, but how am I relating my relational experience to life and people? That's what I need to watch. Because if I have an inner navigation, which is really me being in right relationship to myself and divine creator, I don't need to necessarily know too much else about my navigation will tell me, my biofeedback will tell me. And then finally, if the inner navigation is in place, the biofeedback, the relationship between consciousness and my person, now can I have fun with it? Can I honor my process for what it is, good, bad, and ugly? And none of it's ugly, actually, or it might be messy, including being comfortable not knowing outcomes, but being in relationship to life. Can I do that? And so this is sort of the map I use in my own world, that I'm always aware of where I've come from. Not that I dwell on it. I know my history. I know how it's written on the slate of who I am. I know what my story is. Yep. I'm aware there's injuries and scars. Some are resolved, some are not. Some are further along than others. And I know what my narrative is. But I also recognize how life, like I said earlier, is conspiring. It's conspiring to heal me. It's conspiring to help me learn. I know that. I trust that. I believe that. I have proof in my own world. I hope you do too. But I practice a self-awareness. I'm looking for insights. And I know that my job is to pay attention to my responses. And therein is how I carve a different path. If I respond differently on purpose, my outcomes are going to be differently. And I'm going to raise my vibration. And I'm going to magnetize to me different experiences. And then finally, yeah, can I have fun with it? Yeah, thank God I can. Yes, I'm going to have fun with it. Is everything always fun? No. But those experiences tend to be much more short-lived. But I have fun with it. And it's okay not to know what's going to happen next. It's okay. I don't have to know. What I have to know is this moment, am I in right relationship to myself and divine creator? That's what I need to know. And if I know that, I don't have to know, oh, does he like me? Does he not like me? Is it going to work out? Is it not going to work out? Is a new soulmate coming in? Are they going to like me? Am I doing the right thing? All that goes away if I'm honoring me and I have a clear connection to divine consciousness. Let's see. Elizabeth, I definitely have expanded awareness since recognizing my sacred wound and seeing that I've been projecting into the world a story created when I was 4 years old. It's radical to know I don't need to do that anymore. But now I feel like I'm just floating in space with a new story, just space. Beautiful. Very, very beautiful. Yeah, and as we've seen in some of the meditations, I mean, we're mostly space. We're a bunch of atoms going around, right? And it's mostly space that we're operating in. And so the more we recognize that, I think, and the more we play with that, the easier it is. So, you know, good for you. Good for you, Elizabeth. That takes courage. Melody, yes, I identified my injury/wound as cultural and my parents. To be a good Chinese daughter, it means to always be obedient and never talk back. This encouraged led to voice suppression, never feeling valued or heard or taken seriously. It's been an emotional journey, but I'm continuing to work on my voice. Good, good. Yep. Well, I mean, there you have it, the awareness. And it is the awareness. I mean, that's the beginning. And to honor that and forgive your parents for what they didn't know. I mean, I'm sure I have screwed up my kids. I've tried not to, but I'm sure they're going to have stuff. And they do. My daughter will call me out from time to time. So we can find ways to forget them because we do the best we can with what we know and who we are. But I'm glad that you keep leaning into that and being very compassionate and patient with yourself. Any questions about the map? I mean, does it make sense to you? I mean, I did it in the first person with my story, but can you guys relate to that? And can you use this in some form of a template as you go forward? Does it make sense to you?
Yes.
Yes, who said yes?
Melody did.
Oh, there you go. There's your thumb. Okay, here's another. Okay. Yes, Sonia says yes. Wendy says these are great journal prompts. Great. Good, good. Awesome. All righty. Okay, Jackie, yes, so much sense, especially the response part. Yeah, good, good. Deja, it makes sense. Thank you for sharing it. Yep, yep, yep. You're welcome. All right, let's see. Good. Well, we're doing good on time. Let's move into our reclaiming self, embracing the shadows meditation. Just give me a second. I think I might play a little music with this. So it might take, oh, Bobia says, I think I've explored that already. Some good, good, good. I'm going to try and play a little music with this just to, because there's some dead airspace in this a little bit while we do it. So I just give me a second to kind of get the balance with the music and the voice. Okay, just a sec here. All right. Yeah. I'm going to stop the share for a minute so I can find my way. Okay, let me get out of here. Here we go. Where is it? Here we go. So you guys let me know if this is too loud. I don't want the music to be too loud. Okay. So today we're going to do a meditation to create a space that will help us reclaim our shadow and ourself. That part of us that we've hidden away from ourselves and others in fear, embarrassment, denial, and rejection. We know our shadow well. It's the friend we would rather not introduce, the one who reminds us of our past. It's the part of us that is cloaked in blackness or invisibility. And it's a stark contrast to the light that we would rather stay in, and that is our true nature. Our shadow is part of us that we don't quite know how to love or accept. So we tuck it into corners of forgetfulness and let it become a long gone memory. But we are beings of light with so much compassion to give and receive. We are also wildly human, flawed, troubled, real, trying. It's because of this humanness that we need to embrace all that we are and allow the light that connects us to the stars to also connect us to our shadows. Because ultimately, they are one and the same. Allow yourself to get comfortable in your seat, propping yourself up if you need to, and ever so gently begin to allow your eyes to close and take a few deep, long breaths in and out. Begin to watch your breath. Allow your breath to wash away tension, thoughts, considerations, and worries. Allow yourself to go inside. And as you do this, place your right palm on your knee or in your lap, facing down, and let your left palm gently rest on your knee or your lap, facing up. And breathe in deeply and out. Allow your physical body to soften along the edges that feel tense or tight. Let your shoulder blades relax like sandbags falling down your back. Allow your jaw and brow to ease. Continue consciously relaxing until your body has found that neutral seat of ease and comfort, and surrender. Now, begin to see yourself in a circle by a gentle fire. Notice that the stars are out. And as you begin to be aware of them, you now notice that they have multiplied tenfold since you joined the circle. And their shine now casts a beautiful light, so none other is needed. And you feel safe, secure, and comfortable in your seat and in this light. Look around and take it all in. The stars, the fire, what you're learning, how you are sitting, smells and sounds of this sacred circle. Now, imagine that others have joined you in the circle. They have quietly come in and taken their seat, completing the circle. Imagine that these gentle souls are versions of you. Each one a part of your personality. They represent elements of you and your life. What do they look like? When they see you, how do they approach you? Are they soft or loud, shy or active, angry, content, sad, fearful, joyful, or happy? Take a moment now and invite each of them in and allow yourself to study them as they are. Take them in as they are. Allow each of them to sit by your side, by yourself, right in front of you. Welcome them all. In your seat, with your right palm facing down, left palm facing up, Imagine that your person to your right places their hand on top of yours. Likewise, your person to your left places their hand into yours. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. What does it feel like to hold hands with everyone who makes you who you are? And imagine now, in the soft glimmer of the stars and the fire, in the company of everyone who creates you, that each person has a message for you. And with hands embraced, allow each person to speak their truth and share their message with you. No matter what we've done in life, who we've hurt, or who has hurt us, our shadow only wants to be heard. With your messages of heart and mind, stand up in your circle as everyone else follows and stands. Plant your feet firmly in the ground with your most divine foundation. Allow each person to come up to you and give you the most compassionately warm embrace. See them as they approach you. Meet their gaze and their soft smile. And as you do this, hug them, pull them in close. Imagine your heart is reaching out to theirs, and they melt into it until they softly disappear into your heart center. And continue this with every person. We are only whole when we embrace all of who we are. Each person we hugged is a moment in time where we welcome them back into our heart space, where they always belonged. In the light of the stars of our own being, we held hands with our deepest selves, both to give and receive. The left and the right, the palms together, complete you. And in that spirit, bring your palms now to touch at your heart. Visualize that energy of your entire being unified as one. together in one small space of countless possibilities. Tuck your chin to that space and thank it for bringing you all closer together. And now may you all walk with ease, peace, and the company of limitless love. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the room you're in. And very nice. You don't have to. I want a gentle exit to today's class. And you're going to go out into the world today. And there's no assignments this week on purpose, just to really be with yourself and the exploration that you did this past week. If you want to share, you can. It's up to you. Let me bring my PowerPoint back up. Okay, got it. There we go. Let me pull up my chat room because I can't tell if somebody wants to talk. Okay. Glad you liked it. Good. Yeah, of course. I mean, you're so welcome. Just want you guys to be happy. So next week it's gonna get fun. Not that this isn't fun, but this is really such a joyful next step where we're grounding the vision of love. We're creating an intention to manifest. We're gonna get more clarity on what we want. We're gonna attune to our intuitive, our inner navigation. We're gonna connect to preparation, to receive, which includes integrity and integrity with self, which can be, I think we've all been told what integrity is. And sometimes we're right and sometimes we were missing a piece. So we're going to talk about that. So yeah, it's going to be lighter next week. So we're going to call it unless anybody has any comments or any additional questions or anything that feels unfinished for you for today's class. And you can chat me up or unmute, whatever you think you need. You're so welcome, Imelda. Thank you, of course. And Elizabeth, thank you. Phyllis, and each of you, yes. Thank you guys for being here. You're fabulous, and these groups are so wonderful for all of you, and to be in the energy, it expedites the process for sure. All right, well, go out and have a fabulous day. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Of course.